Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome to CLS Live, a live stream series presented by the publishers of Contact Lens Spectrum. I'm your host once again, Ashley Tucker, and as always, it has been my pleasure and privilege to be a part of this awesome program. Today's live stream is bittersweet for me, as it is my final installment in this fantastic series about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Over the last few months, we have broken down each aspect of DEI and have had enlightening conversations with several of my esteemed colleagues. This week will be no exception. Last month, Dr. Lucy Kahinde and I had a fantastic discussion about inclusion. She discussed how she has spearheaded the Time to Talk series at the University of Houston. These sessions have allowed a platform for both students there and faculty to discuss interesting but sometimes tricky topics like inclusive healthcare for people with intellectual disabilities, invisible stories of Asian Americans, but all with the intention of creating a more comfortable and inclusive environment for our students and ultimately our patients. This week, again, is our final installment, but I'm excited to move on to the newest and final part of DEI, and that's belonging. Belonging can be defined as a person's perception of acceptance within a given group, including a work, school, or healthcare setting. Fostering a sense of belonging means that people of all backgrounds get a seat at the table and feel heard, seen, and recognized for their contributions. I cannot think of a better person to discuss this topic with me than Dr. Jeanette Pepper. Dr. Pepper is an associate professor at the Southern College of Optometry. She's a fellow of the College of Optometrists in Vision Development and a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry. In 2020, Dr. Pepper became the coordinator of student diversity and inclusion at SCO. While in this role, she has received 2 diversity, equity, inclusion certifications, one from Cornell University and the other one from the University of South Florida, Muma College of Business. Dr. Pepper also serves as chair of ASCO's Diversity and Cultural Competency Committee and vice president of the American Academy of Optometry Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. She also served as a board member of the NOA and a member of the Transitions Optical Diversity Advisory Board. Welcome, Dr. Pepper.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley.
Thank you for being here. So, Jeanette, we're not going to waste any time. Let's jump right in. So I personally feel, and maybe you feel differently, but now more than ever, our students need to feel heard and accepted for exactly who they are. No exceptions there. So this will, in my opinion, make them ultimately better human beings and, of course, healthcare providers. But why do you feel it's important that we have discussions like this on DEI and healthcare in general, but also in academia?
You know, that is such a great question, and I'm glad you're raising that point. People who feel like they belong perform better, they give more valuable input, and they are more likely to stay there. You have the retention you need and things of that nature. As far as with students, you can actually increase academic performance. You will enhance their purpose of being there and being in the classroom and things of that nature. It's so critical that we make sure we have components of belonging in our, not just in our curriculum, but also staff interactions, faculty interactions, and administrative interactions. Now, on the patient care side, it's actually critical. Now, we have a thing that's called health disparities, where there are certain populations who are more likely to have detrimental effects of different health conditions. And one of the reasons for that is in the examination room and how they are treated, right? Or how the perception of how they are treated. And when we make efforts to enhance belonging, meaning that you're my patient and I want to make sure we take care of your eyes the best way possible, that says wonders for people who have medical mistrust, for people who are marginalized or are fearful of going to the doctor's office and all of those sorts of things. It makes a belonging makes a avenue for increased patient adherence, increased patient outcomes, and it actually improves job satisfaction for us, because patients are not only, we're not only providing that platform of inclusion and belonging, but they want to come back. They're happy to see us, even if the information isn't great in that particular examination. As long as they know we care, patients will come back, right? And we've all heard of the statistics about malpractice, and you're more likely to be in a malpractice or a litigation situation with a patient when they feel like you don't care about them, right? Versus when they feel like you do care about them, and even if you get it wrong, they still coming back and they're going to tell others to come back. So to help reduce health disparities, so this is a public health thing, belonging is critical. And if you model it with your staff, the belonging, oh, you're batting 1,000.
That's true. That is so true. And it all, like you said, it starts with fostering that in our students, right? And that will bleed into healthcare and then how the patient perceives their care. That's great. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And I think what the onus is on academic institutions to model that. And I don't know if we've modeled that with our staff members in the academic institution, with our faculty members in the academic institutions. Once we do that and the students not only hear about it, but see it when they go out and practice, they'll make it happen.
It's true. So as I mentioned in your biography, I think this position that you hold at SCO is incredible, but you are the coordinator for student diversity and inclusion at SCO. So in my mind, I think that's a pretty new position. Are you the inaugural person for that position, or has that been around for a while?
No, I'm the inaugural person for that position. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that role, maybe some challenges, some exciting components of it? I'd love to learn more about that.
So I will tell you that my role that I currently hold with diversity and inclusion actually began in 2019. The president of the college, Dr. Reich, came to me about expanding my other role that I was currently in. So let me go back a little bit.
Yeah, please.
I was the coordinator for student minority recruitment since 2010. So that meant that I went to different schools and colleges for recruitment purposes, and with a particular emphasis on HBCUs, or historically Black colleges and universities. And so with us being in Memphis, Tennessee, we were really close to several HBCUs in Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and even Georgia. So I did that for a long time. And I don't remember the conference, but Dr. Reich went to a conference where they were talking about the importance of diversity and inclusion in academic settings. And he was like, I think this is something where we could use this with your role, so that you're already interacting with our students and advisors in other colleges. Now you have the expanded role of making sure that once they get to the institution, that they're welcomed, right?
Yeah.
And that because it's one thing for me to recruit all of these students, but if you get them there and they don't feel welcome, what's the retention with that, right? So he came to me in 2019 about it, and we formulated the job description for it. So for me to start July 1, right? Hey, no big deal, of 2020, right? No big deal. But then in March, COVID hit, right? And I was like, okay, COVID, not good, but we'll work through this. And then in May, when George Floyd hit, it was a moment. Right. And so the role that I had, which was supposed to, make sure students feel welcome. That's why I was just coordinator of student diversity and inclusion, immediately expanded. And it expanded to my focus was inclusion, and I tried to do that, but I had to consider, okay, are faculty trained in inclusion? Or how are our staff interacting with students and stuff, with patients and all those sorts of things? So a lot more was tacked on after May 2020. And so we've been trying to navigate that because to be honest, this role could be a full-time position, and I'm still a clinician. I still teach in the labs and stuff like that. So we had to adjust the expectations to make sure that we were hitting our goals, but also able to make sure I'm still an optometrist as well.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of 2020, speaking of the pandemic, and all that happened in 2020. My students at UHCO seem to struggle with that whole hybrid classroom model and then coming back into the school. And it felt like they had a really hard time having a sense of connection and belonging in the subsequent years after the pandemic, dealing with the pandemic, but also dealing with the whole shift in our culture and our society. Did you guys struggle with that a little bit at SCO as well?
Absolutely. Not so much the class of 2020, because the class of 2020, when COVID hit, they just, stopped being in clinic, but they had already forged those relationships. Where we saw the biggest aches with that was not even as much with our class of 2021. They did pretty good because they had the first three and a half years of connecting and stuff. So they had already built those relationships. Where it hit hardest was in our rising third year, so the class of 2022, because they were just starting in clinic and having connections while trying to see patients and things of that nature, and everything being online and the expectations. It was a huge adjustment. And then our class, the entering class, and the same thing with our second year class, they had adjustments too, but they had their first year where they had developed that connection. But our entering class of 2020, that was tough. And we tried a little bit of everything. Like we tried town halls, we tried having them, they have advisors when they're assigned advisors when they're in their first year, which are groups of, we have a class of 136 or 130 something ish. Sometimes a little bit more, a little bit less. And so they were assigned advisors in groups of 15, 16, something like that. And so we thought about, okay, let's have advisor meetings or advisor Zooms or what have you. Or maybe we can get together outside, where, you can socially distance appropriately, but still connect. And that was tough because then you had to deal with Zoom fatigue. And them I've just been on Zoom all day with classes because, of course, optometry school, the amount of time they spend in classes is a lot, right? And then we would ask them, okay, I want you to, after you've done everything and done all of your labs and stuff, because we had to spread out labs as well, because only so many people could be in a lab at a time. And so some people wasn't getting out of lab until late in the evenings, like 9 o'clock or so, or what have you. And so then we were like, okay, let's do a Zoom.
Social Zoom, right?
Right. And they weren't trying to hear that. And I can't blame them. So I know that we got through it. I'm not sure we mastered it by any means. We did town halls with the president where they could just speak their mind blatantly, just say, hey, this ain't working, or what are we going to do about this? And what I love is that administration listened. We would try something. If it worked, cool. If it didn't, we'll try to do something else. This period of time, our team or our administration was more open to suggestions than ever, because we were just trying to figure out how can we best support our faculty, staff, and students.
I hear you. So many organizations within our profession they're embracing this initiative. We're trying to do our part. The ultimate goal is to focus on student recruitment, diverse representation within college faculty, and then of course infusing cultural competencies into academic teachings. Now, do you think that we as a profession are doing enough, or do you think there's still a gap somewhere?
Well, first, I will say that prior to 2020, the things that the organizations are doing now with the AOA, the Academy of Optometry, and all ASCO, all the other organizations, this sort of thing was unheard of, right? We might have said something, but it might have not have been as accepted. Now it's more of they're looking for ways to be more inclusive. They're looking for ways to be better with our interactions and stuff. And so I'm grateful for the effort. right? I'm grateful for the wanting to be better and understanding that we have that different populations are just more advantaged than others, and we need to do things to level out the playing field. Now, in saying that, have we reached the mecca of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in our optometric organizations? Absolutely not. I think that the first step was just being aware, because you can't change what you're not aware of. But then the second step is looking at, okay, how do we shift culture? And you shift culture by examining policies and structure, how things are set up. That's the next step. That's where the gaps are, because we can do these different programs and they're going to be great. But if we fall back on policies that may not be equitable, or structures where it's more so, who do you know that can be a part of the leadership team versus the qualifications of someone being a part of a leadership team, then that is what changes the culture there. That's what shifts the mindsets and things of that nature. I think that once the organizations examine their current policies and the structure that they have for their members, and then they can examine, okay, this is where it might not be as equitable as we like. That's where we're going to get the change that we're looking for. As long as they or when they start to realize that in America, period, there are people who are disadvantaged and there's people who are advantaged, and those that are advantaged should help in ensuring that those that are disadvantaged have that level playing field. I usually equate it to being left-handed in a right-handed world, right? So as a righty, I don't think about what left-handed people have to go through, right? I just do my thing. But to change that structure, right, is in a classroom, if I have right-handed notebooks and left-handed notebooks, or right-handed desks and left-handed desks, versus a lefty just having to figure out, well, I'll just curve my hand around to make it happen. That's where you get the structural changes that make sure things are equitable.
I like that righty lefty analogy. I've never heard that, but that really puts it into perspective, right? Wow. So we're almost done. Can you believe it? But just to wrap up, so having a sense of belonging, we can all agree that it's vital to a person's overall well-being, and it's something that many of us can take for granted simply because we've never felt like we don't belong, right? And that's unfortunate, but that's true. So before I let you go, do you have any final recommendations? We took it, we're looking at the organization, the profession as a whole, but do you have any recommendations for practitioners, just individual people, so they can help foster or create an environment that promotes a sense of belonging in their life and or their practice? Any parting advice?
I love that. I love that question, because it helps to have actionable steps you can do right now to move the needle forward, right? And so the number one thing, or it's several things you can do, but one thing you can do is value the people you have on your staff. How do you show that you value their input, that their input is important, that even though you may be the doctor, you don't know everything. You don't have the perspective of everyone, right? And so their input may help you interact with patients who see things like they see them. Specifically, if your staff is part of a major demographic that you serve, right? And you may not be a part of that particular demographic. So value the input of your staff in meetings, when you make decisions, and ask their input, right? Instead of always the top-down approach, make it be a collaborative effort so that they feel as if they're part of the team. But then also, if you have a patient demographic that may be different than your own, look at the cultural holidays that they may celebrate, right? So for example, it's June. So if you have a heavy African-American population, have something that says Happy Juneteenth, right? That would mean a lot, okay? Or if you have a staff member that is LGBTQ, or if you have patients who identify as LGBTQ, have a monitor screen on your, or have a screen on one of your monitors that says Happy Pride Month. That's it. It doesn't take a whole lot, but as long as you're showing that the people you serve, you care about them and what's important to them, that starts to foster that, oh, okay, I guess this doctor actually kind of cares a little bit about Juneteenth. I'm surprised they even knew what Juneteenth was. That's big, right? So
Mhm.
those are ways where you can foster that sense of inclusion, that sense of belonging, that we care about you, and say it. Like, say, we care about you. We want you to have the best visual health possible, whether it be with glasses, contact lenses, or what have you. Like, we want that for you, and we want you to continue to come back to us because we know we're going to care for you. That's huge in and of itself, because when I go to a healthcare provider, I don't hear, I care about what's best for you. Right? How many times have we heard a practitioner say, I want you to be as healthy as possible, and I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that happens? That says a whole lot there, right?
Powerful. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And just saying that means a lot to someone that may be fearful about going to the doctor or what have you. So just having those things set up, those things in place, makes a world of difference.
Totally agree. Well, Dr. Pepper, thank you so much for your advice and insights on this topic. You have been a fantastic caboose to this series. I so appreciate you being here.
Mhm.
Please join us next month, as I will be passing the baton on to a new host who will explore a new topic, and that's the future of contact lenses. As a reminder, you can catch previous episodes of CLS Live on the Contact Lens Spectrum page on Facebook or on contactlensspectrum.com, as well as transcripts of the show now in the printed version of Spectrum each month. Thank you again, and be sure to stay tuned in for next month's edition of CLS Live. Thank you all.
Bye now.
Bye.